He was dripping wet, barely 22, and standing in my doorway like he didn't know where else to go. I told myself I was just being kind, but when our eyes met, I knew it wasn't just the rain making my heart race. I let him in because it was storming outside, but what I didn't expect was the storm that would rise inside me. Welcome to the channel, where we tell the stories no one dares to say out loud. Stories that blur the lines between comfort and temptation, loneliness and awakening. Have you ever shared a moment with someone you weren't supposed to? Can something be wrong if it felt more real than anything else? Would you walk away from it? Or open the door wider next time? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Your honesty could be the reason someone else feels less alone today. If this story touches something in you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Every week, we bring you real emotions, impossible choices, and the kind of moments that stay with you long after the screen fades to black. At 61, I find myself reflecting on a life where I once thought I had all the answers neatly arranged. In my youth, I embraced the journey of marriage, nurtured 2 wonderful children, dedicated my time to the local library in a part-time role, and reserved Sundays for the comforting ritual of baking. To me, love was a gentle presence, a familiar companion that nestled beside you on the couch, content in its silence. I remained steadfast in my routine, never daring to ponder what might be absent, until a tempestuous afternoon dismantled the fragile fortress of security I had constructed around my heart. Never did I imagine that something of this nature could befall me. I urge you, avoid the error I once made. It began with the rain, a torrential early summer deluge that caused the windows to weep and transformed the street into a shimmering, shadowy river. Alone in my sanctuary, I cradled a warm cup of tea, gazing out the window as the neighbors' hedges danced in the gentle breeze. It was then that I caught sight of him, dashing up the sidewalk with purpose. Dripping with moisture, his hoodie clung tightly to his back. Initially, I assumed it was one of the local teenagers, but as he approached, familiarity washed over me, exasperating. He was the offspring of Michelle and Gary, the neighbors in the adjacent dwelling. Perhaps 22, or was it 23 now, if my memory serves me right. After college, he had returned to live with them a few months prior. Though I had spotted him mowing their lawn or jogging by, our interactions remained limited to the customary neighborly nods. Nothing beyond that. Up to this moment, he sprinted toward my porch, protecting his face from the downpour, and rapped on the door. I swung the door open, taken aback. "Hello, Mrs. Carter," he gasped, breathless. "Apologies, I was out for a stroll and didn't anticipate such a downpour." "My parents are away, and I find myself without a key." He resembled a soaked little puppy. His jeans hugged his legs tightly, while droplets of water cascaded from the tip of his nose. For just a fleeting moment, I paused before moving aside. "Step inside before you find yourself under the weather." He whispered his gratitude as he entered my foyer, shaking off the droplets of rain. I retrieved a towel from the hallway closet and offered it to him. He flashed a grin while brushing his hair back. "I apologize for intruding in this manner. I simply required a place to bide my time. Not a problem in the slightest," I replied. "Avoid lingering gazes. I'll take care of putting your clothes in the dryer. You may transform into something belonging to my son." In the guest room closet, remnants of his past linger, tucked away among the shadows. Liam's expression was one of surprise, perhaps tinged with a hint of amusement, yet he nodded in agreement. "That would be wonderful, thank you." As I strolled down the corridor to fetch the garments, a slight breathlessness enveloped me. Not due to effort, A peculiar sensation enveloped my chest, constricting it tightly. 3 years had slipped by since my husband's passing, and while I had acclimated to the stillness that enveloped my home, the presence of another man, regardless of his youth, had not graced my space in all that time. It stirred a peculiar sense of self-awareness within me. He transformed swiftly and emerged clad in a navy t-shirt and sweatpants that hung loosely on his slender build. "You're a lifesaver," he declared, collapsing onto the couch as if he had been familiar with this home for ages. "Your home still carries that delightful scent of cinnamon. Do you recall the times we spent here together when I was just a child, accompanied by my mom? For your delightful lemon bars." A smile graced my lips as I sat opposite him. My lemon bars remain my signature creation. Our conversation lingered for a time. Everyday occurrences, the search for employment, the peculiar condition of our world, my flourishing garden. The thunder rumbled intermittently, while the rain tapped rhythmically against the windows, reminiscent of a ticking clock. At a certain point during our exchange, it struck me just how effortless it was to engage with him. He listened with unwavering focus. His eyes, a gentle shade of green I had previously overlooked, lingered on me longer than was customary, yet there was nothing about it that unsettled me. In stark contrast, "Apologies if I've lingered too long," he remarked at last, casting a glance toward the shadowy window. "The rain shows no signs of relenting." "You're fine," I said, then quickly added, "If you wish, you are welcome to stay for dinner. Here I am, alone, with an abundance of soup I've prepared." His countenance brightened. "That truly sounds incredible." Thus he remained. As I arranged the table, he meticulously dried the dishes I had washed just moments before. We savored potato leek soup accompanied by buttered toast, and I discovered a joy within me, laughing more than I had in months. He possessed a humor that was gentle and tinged with self-mockery. Contemplative, soft. Once dinner had concluded, we transitioned back to the living room. The lights dimmed to a soft, inviting glow, casting a gentle warmth that seemed to slow the passage of time itself. He reclined on the rug, his back resting against the couch, legs extended as if he were a child once more. "May I pose a question to you?" He spoke after a prolonged pause. "Absolutely. Have you ever experienced loneliness?" The inquiry took me by surprise. I parted my lips, only to seal them once more. He gazed at me with a sincerity that took me by surprise. "Indeed," I murmured softly, "more than I reveal." He nodded, his gaze drifting elsewhere. "Same here." The silence that ensued was not uncomfortable. It was rich and profound, brimming with unspoken thoughts. The distance that separated us was minimal, yet it pulsed with an undeniable energy. I observed the manner in which his fingers absently toyed with the hem of his shirt, the subtle tightening of his jaw, as if he were restraining a thought or feeling he struggled to articulate. "I remember catching glimpses of you in the yard," he remarked unexpectedly, his gaze fixed on the pages of his book on the porch. "There was an undeniable tranquility about you. I extend that invitation." Words eluded me. Compliments had turned into infrequent guests in my existence, and when they came from him, youthful, observant, it resonated more profoundly than I had anticipated. I rose to clear the dishes, a wave of fluster washing over me. "Allow me." "I am here to assist." He trailed behind me into the kitchen. We stood together, immersed in the rhythm of washing and drying, silence enveloping us. Our arms brushed together once, then again, and on the third occasion, I remained steadfast in my place. I gazed up at him. His gaze was already fixed upon me. The moment lingered, a breath held in anticipation. I failed to consider. The heaviness of my solitude pressed upon me, yet his proximity offered a comforting warmth, a gentle reminder of my femininity, transcending the roles of mother and widow that had defined me. Yet I took a moment to withdraw. "I ought to seek out a blanket for you," I murmured softly. He inclined his head with deliberation. "Indeed, very well." And in an instant, the moment slipped away. Yet it remained, refusing to vanish. It hung in the air between us, reminiscent of the scent of rain wafting through the screen door. In that instant, I realized that a change had occurred, an irrevocable shift that I could never undo. The following morning, the sky appeared pristine and unblemished. The gentle glow of post-storm light filtered through the kitchen window as I filled my cup with coffee. Clad in my robe, I cradled the warm mug against my lips, lost in contemplation of the previous night. Liam found himself slumbering on the couch. I had brought him a blanket and a pillow, mindful to avoid holding his gaze for too long. After the moment in the kitchen, our words had dwindled to a simple goodnight, leaving behind a silence that resonated more profoundly than anything we had shared. Rest eluded me. My thoughts spiraled in an unending loop, not merely fixating on the near occurrence, but on the deeper implications of my desire for it. As I glanced into the living room, I discovered him alert, meticulously folding the blanket, the pillow arranged with precision on the armrest. He had returned to his own attire, now dry, and he lifted his gaze with a gentle, nearly contrite smile. "Morning," he said, his voice husky, as voice husky lay asleep. "Morning?" I replied, tucking my hair behind my ear in a manner reminiscent of a shy schoolgirl. "I trust I managed to keep my slumber silent." "You didn't," I remarked, then continued. "You're quite the silent visitor." He gave a slight nod and made his way to the front door, pulling on his sneakers with a practiced ease. "I appreciate all that you've done. I truly didn't intend to create any awkwardness." I remained in place, the mug cradled in my hands, at a loss for words. The mature side of me, the sensible widow, the nurturing mother, the upstanding neighbor, felt the urge to nod, to utter that it was fine, and to turn the page on this chapter. Yet, the other part, the part that had awakened beneath the glow of his gaze, murmured that I was deceiving myself. It wasn't strange, I insisted, perhaps a touch too hastily. "It took me by surprise, that's all." He hesitated, his body angled slightly toward the door. "Same here." We lingered in that silence once more, as if we were unsure how to conclude something that had never truly started. He extended his hand toward the handle. "Very well, I shall allow you to return to your day." Exasperating. He pivoted. "Whenever you feel the urge to visit, whether the skies are clear or pouring, my door is always ajar for you." There. I have spoken it into existence. His expression transformed. This time, the smile held no trace of sheepishness. It was a gentle touch, a feeling of gratitude. "Thank you, Mrs. Carter. Simply refer to me as Helen." He departed, and I lingered for a moment, the sound of his footsteps on the porch gradually diminishing, mingling with the gentle clink of my spoon against the coffee mug. The remainder of the day drifted by in a peculiar fog. I busied myself with tasks, clearing out the linen closet, tending to the garden, reorganizing the spice rack. Yet each still moment between these activities drew my thoughts back to him. What was the significance of it all? Why did it feel as though something had shattered within me, akin to a window I had been unaware was closed for years? On that particular night, I found myself seated on the porch. The air enveloped me in warmth, while the trees, still glistening from the recent storm, stood sentinel around me, and my paperback rested, neglected, upon my lap. I must have been lost in thought, for I failed to notice him drawing near. "Greetings!" I glanced upward, and there he stood, hands tucked into his pockets, hair still a touch damp from a recent shower. Text. "You returned," I remarked, astonished by the joy that surged within me at the sight of him. "I assumed it wouldn't be an issue for you. I do not." He positioned himself next to me, maintaining a distance that was intimate yet respectful. "My apologies once more for yesterday," he remarked. "I typically do not. Kindly proceed with that task." "Whatever that may have been, I understand," I replied gently. "I feel the same way." We lingered in quietude for a moment, observing as the world embraced the twilight. The porch light illuminated with a gentle flicker, enveloping us in a warm, golden glow. "I've been feeling a bit adrift lately," he confessed, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon. "Returning here, I find myself in a peculiar limbo, caught between the innocence of childhood and the responsibilities of adulthood. I find myself uncertain about my place in the world." I shifted my gaze towards him. "I possess a deeper understanding of that feeling than you might assume." Our gazes locked, and in that fleeting moment, the years between us vanished. The years that separated us seemed insignificant, especially when we were merely two souls navigating the complexities of finding our place in the world once more. "I longed for conversations like this," I remarked. I had not fully grasped the depth of my longing to be acknowledged. "You're quite approachable," he remarked. "I perceive your presence, I truly do." The words enveloped me like a gentle tide. I swallowed, feeling a sudden constriction in my throat. "May I pose a question to you, Helen?" "Certainly." "Did you sense it as well, that moment in the kitchen?" My breath hitched. I gazed at my hands for a fleeting moment before lifting my eyes. "Indeed, I did." He released a breath as if it had been trapped within him for an eternity. "All right. I simply needed reassurance that I wasn't losing my mind." "You are not." The silence that ensued was no longer filled with doubt. It brimmed with a subtle sense of allowance, an unspoken agreement that a change had occurred between us, one that would linger indefinitely. "I should probably go," he said, rising slowly to his feet. "You don't have to," I replied, surprising even myself. He remained still, simply gazing at me. "I wish to remain," he said softly, "but only if that is what you desire as well." I rose to my feet, confronting him completely. The porch light illuminated his features with a gentle radiance, and in that moment, after so many years, I sensed a flicker within me, a pulse of life awakening. "I find myself at a loss," I murmured, "yet I am not prepared to shut the door on this possibility." He inclined his head in acknowledgement. Thus, neither of us took that step. When Liam next arrived, it was not due to the rain. The sky stretched out in a brilliant blue, the air infused with the gentle warmth of late spring, a tranquil hush settling in just before the arrival of summer. As I nurtured the hydrangeas in the front yard, my hands immersed in the rich soil, I suddenly became aware of his footsteps approaching on the sidewalk. "Need a hand?" he inquired, and as I glanced up, I found him already crouched beside me. Initially, our conversations were sparse. He took hold of a trowel and assisted me in replanting one of the drooping stems. I shrank in my understanding of how to gently untangle the roots. We flowed together, two souls from different eras, kneeling in the same earth, and somehow it felt instinctive. As we settled onto the porch, sipping our lemon water, beads of sweat shimmering on our skin, he reclined and remarked, "This feels right." I nodded. "Indeed it does." We remained without a label, an undefined entity in the vast expanse of existence. Neither of us was attempting to unravel its meaning. Unvoiced boundaries lingered between us, a silent understanding we both recognized and respected, yet they failed to create distance. They guided us through the process, each step taken with deliberation and purpose. Once more, I extended an invitation for him to join me for dinner that evening. I prepared a succulent roast chicken, accompanied by creamy mashed potatoes and vibrant green beans sautéed in fragrant garlic and olive oil. He assisted in arranging the table, softly humming a melody that was unfamiliar to me. We dined and conversed as if we were longtime companions, at times sharing laughter, at other moments sinking into those comforting, profound silences that required no interruption. Following dinner, he meandered to my record player, a relic I hadn't touched in ages, and sifted through my vinyl collection. He smiled broadly as he extracted one. Fleetwood Mac? A smile graced my lips. Stevie Nicks has a way of weaving complexity and beauty into every moment. With a gentle hand, he set the record in position and lowered the needle with precision. The room was alive with a familiar hum and crackle, a prelude to the music that was about to swell. He extended his hand. I gazed at it intently. "Will you dance with me?" he inquired. Years had slipped by, perhaps even decades, since anyone had posed that question to me. My heart raced as I stood there, allowing him to lead me to the heart of the living room. The furniture receded into the periphery, the walls blurred into insignificance, and in that moment, only the soft cadence of the music and the warmth of his hand on my waist remained palpable. We moved gently in a rhythmic embrace. The warmth of his breath brushed against my ear, accompanied by the tender pressure of his hand resting between my shoulder blades. I gently laid my cheek against his chest, surrendering to the warmth as I closed my eyes. "I don't want this to end," he murmured. I didn't either. As the last notes of the song lingered in the air, we held on a moment longer. Our embrace grew gentler, yet our hands remained intertwined. I leaned away just enough to catch his gaze. "What are we embarking on, Liam?" I inquired, my voice scarcely rising above a whisper. He hesitated before responding. He gazed into my eyes as if he were on a quest for the right words. "I can't say for sure," he replied, "but it feels genuine." Indeed, it came to pass. It was a sensation that defied explanation, yet it did not feel misplaced. I guided him toward the couch. We sat near each other, our knees brushing, the silence expanding around us once more. Yet this time, it was laden with unspoken questions we weren't prepared to confront. Then his fingers grazed against mine. I gazed at our intertwined hands, then lifted my eyes to his face, allowing them to linger in that moment. For countless years, I have endeavored to suppress my emotions, I confessed, striving to find solace in solitude. I never believed I was capable of that. Desire this once more. "You can," he said softly. "You certainly do." My heart raced within my chest. It unfolded with a swiftness that felt surreal, an unexpected twist that defied logic, yet it bore the weight of reality. There is no masquerade, no characters to embody, only the unvarnished desire for connection in a world that has become unsettlingly silent. He leaned in, a subtle movement, curiosity flickering in his gaze. I remained silent, offering no verbal response. I pressed my lips against his. It unfolded with a sense of calm and purpose. It was gentle, a subtle recognition of all that had been simmering between us. As we separated, his forehead lingered against mine, leaving us both gasping for air. "Die in," he murmured gently. "I shall never engage in any action that does not align with your desires. Always." "I understand," I murmured. "That is the reason I stand unafraid." That night, we chose not to venture any further. We simply sat side by side, fingers intertwined, souls laid bare. He lingered on the couch once more, yet this time, the atmosphere surrounding us was infused with a comforting understanding rather than the chill of uncertainty. As I reclined in bed, I found no restlessness born of guilt or uncertainty. A sense of tranquility washed over me. A new chapter had unfolded, something genuine, and I was no longer inclined to flee from it. The days that followed unfolded with a languid grace, reminiscent of emerging from a deep slumber and rediscovering the rhythm of breath. Liam's visits were not a daily occurrence, nor did I anticipate them to be. Yet, whenever he spoke, it seemed as though the world hushed, becoming gentler, as if all that had come before him was merely sketched in pencil. And now, in some inexplicable way, events were being etched onto the page. One afternoon, I found myself perched on the back porch, a glass of wine in hand, as the late sun painted the lawn with long golden streaks. The sound of the side gate creaking open reached my ears. He had come to understand that knocking was no longer necessary. He entered with a relaxed assurance, cradling a small box in his hands. "What is that?" I inquired, placing my glass upon the table. "A small surprise," he remarked, setting it down on the table. Within lay an antiquated Polaroid camera, a relic from days gone by, reminiscent of the time when my children were still young. He smiled while I gazed at it, then retrieved another item from his pocket, a fresh film cartridge. "I thought," he remarked, "that if we're creating memories, perhaps we ought to hold on to a few." I found myself laughing, feeling more moved than I had anticipated. "You truly possess a remarkable essence." He lifted the camera, directing its lens toward me. "Please repeat that, but at a more measured pace." I let out a sigh of exasperation, yet a smile crept onto my lips. Tap. The image emerged from the software, and he brandished it triumphantly in the air. The image gradually emerged before my eyes. With a shy smile playing on my lips, my hair tousled by the gentle breeze, one hand rests casually on the table, while the other is tucked comfortably at my side. I appeared more aged than my inner self, yet I experienced a joy that had eluded me for years. In the fading light of the day, we found ourselves seated upon the cool grass of the backyard. The sun sank beneath the horizon, while fireflies commenced their gentle, flickering ballet in the air around us. He reclined, hands clasped behind his head, as I absent-mindedly drew unseen circles on my knee with a single finger. "Have you ever pondered what others might express?" I inquired softly. He shifted his gaze in my direction. "Who we are." I inclined my head in agreement. He confessed it was a constant reality. "Yet, I am also aware of this. We alone are the architects of our existence." I gazed at him, truly gazed, noting how his eyes sparkled in the dimming light, the serene assurance in his voice, the peculiar depth of understanding that resided beneath his youthful exterior. He wasn't attempting to assume a character. He was not present for a momentary rush. He remained in this place, drawn by the sight of me, and chose to linger regardless. "I am not naive," I asserted. "What exists between us is anything but straightforward." "No," he said, sitting up. Yet it possesses the capacity to be sincere, exquisite, and perhaps even deserving of the effort. I refrained from responding immediately. I extended my hand and grasped his instead. At last, I declared my desire to cease the endless wait for perfection. After what feels like an eternity, my patience has worn thin and fatigue has settled in. He drew me softly into his embrace. I leaned into his chest, attuned to the unwavering beat of his heart echoing softly beneath my ear. That evening, our words dwindled into silence. We lingered there, entwined in the gentle embrace of twilight, as the world beyond our fence continued its bustling rhythm, oblivious to the delicate, serene wonder unfolding in my backyard. As he departed, he pressed a gentle kiss to my cheek, unhurried and without inquiry, simply existing in the moment. As I secured the door behind him, I lingered in the hallway, clutching the Polaroid photo he had carelessly abandoned on the table. It was I, indeed, yet in some inexplicable way, it transcended mere identity. It was a fleeting moment, a reflection of a self I believed I had left behind, filled with hope, openness, and a quiet courage. I positioned the photo on the fridge, not as a tribute to him, but as a reminder of myself. For that is the power of love, genuine love, even when it arrives in an unforeseen guise. It evokes memories of our past selves before the quietude and the potential of who we might still evolve into. The future for Liam and me remains a mystery, yet I feel no fear in uncovering what lies ahead, not any longer.